persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. WFDF Farmington Hills, Detroit. 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
And good morning. You're listening to 910 AM Superstation. I am on the air today with Police Commissioner Willie Burton. Willie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Bob Ficano.
I'm glad that you're able to make it. We have a action-packed lineup here today. There's been a lot of news about, unfortunately, child killings, shootings, I should say, in the city. There's been, a lot of concern about some of the violence and things such as that. And we have some guests that are going to hopefully help us try to work through some of that and what's happening concerning, issues with criminal justice and things like that. I know you're a police commissioner. How long have you been on the commission now?
I've been on the commission for the past 4 years. This marks the beginning of my 5th year.
Okay, well, great. And I know that at this point there's issues concerning violence. We know that the crime statistics are down. It's like anything else, having been sheriff, if you're the victim of a crime, you don't care what the statistics are, that, it has directly impacted you. And that's something that is not, relevant when you say that the statistics are down. If it happened to you, then, it's the number one statistic that has impacted you. But we have some people who are going to help us with that today. We also are joined today with Scotty Boman, professor at Wayne County Community College as well. Scotty, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you were able to join us. Now, on the line, you lined up some guests for us, Willie. Why don't you say who they are, and we're going to bring them on.
We got Dr. Erin Comartin from Wayne State University. That's on the show right now. And then also later on, we're going to hear from Deputy Chief Todd Bettison from the Detroit Police Department.
So if you have some questions now, we're going to be talking about some issues that concern about some of the shootings in the city of Detroit. And do you feel safe, and do you feel the neighborhoods are safe, and what things that perhaps you have ideas with the Deputy Chief that you might be able to give and to suggest. Also, right now we have on the line Dr. Erin Comartin. She's going to join us. You can call us at 313-778-7600. Dr. Comartin, welcome to 910 AM.
Thank you for having me.
Glad you're able to join us. You're on also with Scotty Boman and with Police Commissioner Willie Burton. Can you give us some perspective a little bit about what you see with some of the issues concerning some of the shooting and violence? And it's not just the city of Detroit, really. I think there seems to be an obvious concern about violence through all the urban areas in the United States.
Yeah, so what I do and my team does around the state is we look at people who come in contact with law enforcement who have mental health problems and concerns. So we look at practices and processes through that initial contact with law enforcement and how they move throughout the criminal justice system. How do law enforcement officers handle such cases? And then what happens to these individuals once they get booked into the jail, and how they move through the courts and then back into their communities. And, since the 1980s, when we started shutting down psychiatric hospitals, there's been this movement of law enforcement officers being the first point of contact for this population who aren't stabilized on medication or in treatment, and then, become that first contact point with law enforcement. So there's been a long movement to try and figure out ways to not have the criminal justice system be the first point of contact, but how to get them moved out of that system and into treatment.
Yeah, well, I know my own experience as a Wayne County Sheriff that many times the police officers, there's a lot more training now than there was in the past, but they wouldn't realize the circumstances that they'd be rolling up on or coming in contact with the individual. And it permeates itself really through the criminal justice system. Many times people that have mental health issues, many times may be homeless. and they, if they come in contact with the criminal justice system, if they're arrested, they're booked. One of the things we always used to say is that the Wayne County Jail was the largest mental health facility in the state of Michigan. That with the closing of many of the clinics, and the most known here in this area was the Lafayette Clinic, that has created a real strain on a lot of the particular, um, correctional facilities, because they are the first, not only point of contact, but if the individual can't make bond, I mean, how do you bond somebody to a street corner if they're homeless? And they stay within the system, and it creates all sorts of issues.
Right. Right. So it's finding effective ways for those, administrators and decision makers in those touch points of the criminal justice system to work really close with the mental health system at the same time. Because oftentimes you can get a mental health worker to come and assist that person as they leave the jail and try and get them rapidly engaged in their treatment, so getting them set up with an appointment. We have lots of jails right now that are really working closely with their local mental health provider, and workers inside the jails are immediately connecting them to their workers outside, so that dropping them off or releasing them from jail at times that aren't conducive to that can be arranged. So we're trying to help that person really get back engaged in the system, or engaged in the treatment system, in hopes that they don't come back into contact with law enforcement and go back through that revolving door of engagement with the police or the jails.
One of the issues, and this is just a side issue, having been to the White House when I was county exec and with the sheriff, and many times they bring us in groups in terms of, I'd be there because other county officials were there, and there'd be discussions with the president or vice president. One of the biggest issues that always came up was that Medicare, or Medicaid, I should say, is cut off once a person is incarcerated. That they don't become eligible for it. And in the past, where there might have been some assistance through Medicaid, once you're incarcerated, the federal policy is that you're not entitled to it. Insurance companies, and sometimes it's if you have a policy such as Blue Cross and Blue Shield, that cuts off as well if you're incarcerated. So it sort of puts the whole burden on the system then to come up with any of the resources in order to help an individual.
And that's exactly it. You're right. The policy currently is that when somebody moves into an incarceration setting, mostly in jails, that their Medicaid does get suspended. There was a time in history where it would be completely cut off, but now policy is written in that it goes into a suspension status until the person is soon to be being released from the jail, and then it's supposed to turn back on. Now, how that policy works at a county level, it can vary, but it's supposed to just be suspended. And ultimately, you're right, that leaves the burden on the county jail system to fill in the gap of those services while the person's in the setting. I've heard county jail administrators say that their largest cost within the jail system is medication, most often mental health, psychotropic medication. So that burden does kind of fall at that level. And so there is this need for counties and the state government to think about how they're going to fill in those services effectively to ultimately reduce somebody coming back into the system. Because you don't want to not serve those people while you're in jail, because that can destabilize them and create issues within the system that could cause problems, injuries to officers, corrections officers, injuries to the individual with a mental health condition, and which could ultimately result in even worse problems once they re-enter the community. So the idea here is that you find out, community and statewide strategies on how to fill in that gap in Medicaid payments.
And sometimes the individual may not be, although they were eligible for Medicaid, were not on Medicaid, and so they get stabilized within the jail system. And sometimes, though, even when if the services don't wrap around or if the services don't continue, once they're discharged from the facility, it creates issues again. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in making sure there's a coordinated system between individuals that once they come into the system, whether they have Medicaid in the past, and you're right, now it is an issue of suspension. When I was sheriff back then, it was cut off, period. And Commissioner Burton, I don't know, has there been more Detroit police training concerning coming in contact with individuals with mental health issues?
Right now, our rookies coming out of the academy are receiving about 8 hours of crisis intervention training. But some of the rank and file has a little bit more. Um, I'd like to see that the community gets to have some type of training when they come in contact with the seriously mentally ill. Because this problem in the city of Detroit and across the state of Michigan has been going on for quite some time. We talk about 1997, 16 mental health hospitals being closed, leaving the seriously mentally ill with nowhere to go for hope or treatment. So it's kind of limited. But, I would love to see our officers get more training and CIT training, but also love to see the community get some training as well.
It's just a bit of irony, just to touch on it. Here you have former Governor Engler that's been put in as the interim president of Michigan State University. And he's the one that really in the state of Michigan was responsible for a lot of the closing of the mental health facilities as we knew it back then and how they were established. And, the sensitivity to people that have challenges in their life. And the Board of Trustees have chosen to put him in charge of Michigan State, where there seems to be a need for sensitivity of some of the victims and the way they were challenged going on. But that's going a little far afield here with it. Dr. Kremen, what kind of programs do you have that you work with the law enforcement agencies?
So nationally, there's mostly two types of programs that are being implemented with on the law enforcement side with mental health. One is what Commissioner Burton just talked about, which is CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Teams Training. This is a model that came out of Memphis in the 1990s, where there's three components to the model, where you give officers 40 hours of law enforcement training where they learn to identify serious mental illness while they're on patrol, but also they learn about community resources on where to direct people instead of booking them into the jail. So the main part there is that training, so officers can understand what mental health issues are and how to identify. Because it's not their role to treat, it's just to identify and divert out of the system. But a bigger component of this model is that there's got to be a place in the community for officers to take those people. So there's got to be a crisis drop-off center that effectively works with officers to get, so officers can get...
Better than just bringing them to jail, right?
That's right. Get them to a mental health clinician that can do the work to treat the individual and get them engaged back in their community successfully. But then the biggest piece that a lot of communities miss around crisis intervention teams training is that there needs to be a community advisory board of high-level administrators along the touch points in the criminal justice system and mental health system working together so that these transitions between law enforcement to the jails, to the courts, to probation and parole officers is seamless. Everybody has to be on the same page to know what the goal is and how to keep people out of this system, and the ones who can effectively. Now, we're not saying every person with serious mental illness can be successfully diverted. There are people who still have the same criminogenic risk factors as anybody else without a mental health issue who's involved in the system. So can't divert them all, but there is a large proportion that can successfully be diverted, especially those on low-level crimes.
Does your training go beyond Detroit PD? I mean, what departments have you been training?
Oh, so I don't actually do the training. As a faculty member at Wayne State University, I evaluate the training. So my team, we have a large team of evaluators where we work with local counties to assist them in implementing that training, and then we evaluate officers. They get a pre-post assessment to see if they picked up knowledge and attitude changes from the training, and then we use data to evaluate their behaviors once they're using those skills on the force. So,
do do you find the officers receptive to this training?
So we've done interviews too with officers who've received this training, and honestly, I really do. Now, officers who sign up for this training, it should be voluntary. So it should be an officer that's already kind of attuned to this being a problem in their local community that they want to address. So you can't really, the goal is not to force officers to take the training, but to give that 40-hour training to officers who care about the issue. Then once they get that training, the interviews that we've done training interviews not only with law enforcement, we've actually done interviews with corrections officers who've received this training and dispatch officers. And it is really amazing to me how they change. So we'll interview them before the training, and they'll say, it's a problem that we need to address. Officers are getting harmed. This is the problem. And then we go and talk to them after the training, and it's like a light bulb had clicked. Some of them would say, I didn't believe in mental health problems prior to receiving that training. But now I actually understand that the way we've been dealing with them are not effective, because this is a psychological problem that is a medical problem that needs to be addressed and treated, not something that, as one officer said, I shouldn't be hooking and booking these people. I should be identifying and diverting them. So we have lots of quotes of law enforcement that really make that connection after the training on how they should be treating or working with this population.
So look at an officer, probably got maybe 10, 12 years on the job, may say, hey, I'm underpaid. I'm not about to volunteer my time to get more training. I feel like I'm underpaid. So when you have a situation like that, should the 40 hours be required for every officer to be able to take 40 hours of training? Because you may have officers that got just 8 hours out the academy and say, hey, 5 years go by, I'm not signing up for no more testing or training. I'm underpaid.
Yeah, that's a thoughtful consideration that needs to be made for any agency that's going to do this type of work. And what they talk about in the research literature and what the designers of this program said is that you really not only need to offer this training to those officers who are doing the patrolling and going out on these calls, but there's got to be a higher level administrator who is a champion of this issue, someone that the rank and file officers, the ones, doing the patrol, look up to and see as someone that's going to really enforce the program, because no one wants to go to a training and then come back and policies and procedures and the standard culture in the force is not really going to support doing the work.
Are there any departments, Doctor, that actually mandate that there be some kind of training, in terms of, mental health contact with individuals on the street?
Well, there are other types of training. CIT is not the only training. There's mental health first aid, and there's some other variations on this training. So some are 8 hours, some are 24 hours. It varies. I don't know departments that mandate CIT training. I know departments have, like the commissioner said, they have the 8 hours in the academy. So essentially that's mandated. But I am not aware in my experience of mandating of CIT training for law enforcement.
If you can hang on, we have to go to break right now. I know we have some callers. Jerry, hang on. One of our callers is calling in. I will get to you right after the break. We'll be back in a minute.
Since 1996, I've helped thousands of injured victims throughout the United States of America. If you need help, call me, Attorney Carl Collins III. My number is 855-CAR-HIT-U.
910 AM Superstation is the voice of Detroit and the talk of the town. Weekdays, weeknights, weekends, and everything in between. If you want national topics, we have it.
Is this DACA challenge that the president has presented? He rolled back the...
He hasn't done it yet. Anybody who says that they know what he's going to do before it happens is making a mistake.
Local discussions, we have that too.
you know, the Pistons, the Red Wings, those arenas, they were made for people primarily in the suburbs, I think, coming in.
Entertainment and relationships? Listen up. And if you thought we were restricted to only the radio, think again. You can hear all of this on 910 AM as well as on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube Live, YouTube Red, and Facebook Live. That's right. Download the 910 AM Superstation app in the Apple, Android, or Windows App Store today and stay connected to the best station in town. Sundays on 910 AM Superstation is a collection of personalities like none other. Different names, different voices, but the same energy.
Arise and shine, for your light is come.
This is Elena Herrera.
Good morning, this is Robert Ficano.
The final call hour with Troy Muhammad on 9:10 a.m.
We got the topics, the guests, the opinions, and the facts.
Hello, this is Angela Moore. Please join me from 3 to 5 p.m.
Be sure to catch Doing the D with Alexander Zonchek from 5 to 7 p.m.
Listen to your girl, Princess Leah, on the Leah Live Show.
Detroit, this is Michael M. Hotel, the African History Network show.
This Pastor Mo, a.k.a. the Street Preacher, a.k.a. the Street Sweeper, from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina, and join me every day from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. for Sizzle and Talk.
It's right here on 910 AM Superstation. We are the future of radio. If great programming and pure excitement is what you want, the Saturday lineup with 910 AM is what you need.
Arise and shine, for your light is come. You're listening to Dr. Billy Taylor. I'm here every Saturday morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
This is Horace Sheffield, the third host of On the Line, and tune in every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
This is Adolph Mongo, Detroit in black and white from 10 a.m. to 12.
I'm Henry Payne, on with your first hour of radio.
Hi, I'm Thaddeus McCowder, your host for Freedom Asylum, every Saturday.
Guess what? You're in Chuck's closet. I'm Chuck Bennett. Welcome to the party.
Perspectives with Christine Beatty. Join us 5 p.m.
Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Wade McCree, every Saturday night from 9 to 11.
I'm Malik Shabazz. This is the Get Up, Stand Up show.
It's right here on 910 AM Superstation. We are the future of radio. 910 AM Superstation is in a league of its own. We are the only talk radio station in the Metro Detroit area sensitive to the African American community.
Make sure you join us on what station?
910 a.m. Superstation.
9:10 a.m.
9:10 a.m.
On 9:10 a.m. Superstation.
910 AM Superstation, Metro Detroit's only African American based talk radio station. We have it all, from motivation to outrage, from advice to empowerment.
You are tuned into the greatest.
Streaming live 24/7.
910 AM Superstation. We are the future of radio.
And good morning. You're listening to Robert Ficano here on 910 AM Superstation, Future of Radio. If you have a call in for us, you can call us at 313-778-7600. Here also with Police Commissioner Willie Burton and with Scotty Boman. We have Dr. Comartin that is on, that is a professor at Wayne State about mental health issues and coming in contact with the police. We have a few callers we're going to take. Jerry, you're on with the group here, Bob Ficano, Commissioner Burton, Dr. Comartin, and Scotty Boman.
Thank you, and good morning to you, Mr. Robert Ficano and Mr. Steve Williams, and good morning to your distinguished guest, the Commissioner, Mr. Burton, and the Professor Daxter. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning. Well, Keith is on at the Democratic Convention already, so he's not with us this morning. Go ahead, Jerry.
I appreciate your show. Your show is very important, because what I try to say over here when it comes to mental health issue, at the beginning I want to say thank you, but thanks for former Governor of Michigan, Mr. John Engler, who is serving as the interim president for MSU, who caused a lot of damage when he was he closed so many mental health facilities, and that was a big damage and disaster to a lot of people. My question over here, Mr. Ficano, to your guest, I do believe that there is a lot of people in a prison who need to be in a mental health facility rather than spending all their life behind bars. So what I try to ask the commissioner and the doctor, don't you think a mass evaluation should be very important to touch all the prisoners in all those correction facilities, and not just evaluation for the prisoner, but I could go a little bit further to start from the people in charge of those correction facilities, from the warden down to all the guards and the police officer in the facilities, a mass evaluation about their mental health statute. I would love to hear the answer from the commissioner and doctor. Thank you, Mr. Bob Ficano, for your show, and God bless you.
Thank you, Jerry.
You know, one of the things is that, there's been, in the past couple of years, you hear different statistics and whatnot about whether crime is up, crime is down. But you turn on the news, you turn on your television, you see a shooting here or shooting there, and then you come to find out the person was mentally ill. So, one of the things, we have done was reach out to Wayne State University, reached out to Dr. Erin Comartin, started having some conversations because, as a public official, we owe it to our residents to get resources out there to them, to get information out there. But more importantly, we formed a mental health task force, and Dr. Erin Comartin, is working. She has her sleeves rolled up. I don't think she ever gets any sleep because she's always dealing with the issue, trying to find solutions. But more importantly, she has a lot of data in her research of years of research that can really help a lot of our problems here on a state level. This is not just a Detroit thing. This is a statewide thing. But I'd rather for Dr. Erin Comartin to elaborate a little bit more.
Thanks. Yeah, so you're right. This is definitely not a Detroit issue. It is not a state issue. It is a national issue. There's lots of reports of crimes, happening across the nation that, people want to call attention to the mental health status of the person who committed the crime. Now, mental health treatment cannot solve every single one of these cases, but there should be a genuine attempt to be treating people who need these services. And as we talked about, the history of mental health treatment started, with larger facilities, and then those were shut down, and now we've been dealing with the aftermath for 30 years. And I think that there's lots of discussion at the state level and the national level about mental health treatment in general, regardless of it being involving the criminal justice system. That we have not only not enough resources to care for the people who need it, but we're also in conversations about those active resources now being cut or being funneled in some other areas. So we've got to come to some policy priority decision on how much are we really going to fund and treat this problem. And I think, there's a lot of people who need these services that don't get access to them, whether it's an insurance issue or whether it's an area in a rural part of the state or the country that just doesn't have the amount of providers that are needed. But a stronger assessment of who can get access to services and how those services are funded is a national conversation.
Doctor, you bring up an interesting point. Have both covering over into some private practice as well, practicing law, one of the issues, there was a probation report, I won't say what district court, and the probation officer was sitting, the individual I had represented had pled to an impaired driving. And what was interesting to me was that he said, okay, you got to go for an evaluation. You do have some medical insurance, but when you request who you go to talk to, don't tell them that you're on probation. Wait till you actually see the counselor, because if you tell the insurance company that you're on probation, they won't cover this with it. It just seems like the system is askew that, you know, you want to drive people to get help. They have these policies, or you have Medicaid, and yet, you know, when it comes to something such as coming into contact with the criminal justice system, everybody just sort of throws their hands up and says, we're not going to do this, and not to help. Anyway, that's just some information. We have several callers. We'd like to get to them. The first one is Carol. Carol, you're on with Bob Ficano, Scotty Boman, and Commissioner Burton.
Thank you, Bob, for taking my call. This is a very important issue with me, the prison system, because I have a cousin whose mother is in the rehab. She's living in a nursing home, and she can't get to see her son. And she already he has two brothers that can pass away. And I pray every day that her only son can get out and help his mother, because she needs help right now. And I've been writing I lost his address because I had to move, and we have mental health issues, and I want to know if my cousin will be helped in prison, because he, and to the doctor, you know, I really commend her for helping the people in the prison, because my cousin, he is a you know, and he had two what you call those when you can come back home and stuff.
He's on parole?
But the people, parole. And the people that they is not releasing him to such the person is not gonna come back, because they had a confrontation when they were young, you know, and I feel my cousin, he served his time because he was 13 years old when he went in, and he lost his medication, he lost all his insurance, he don't have any money or anything, and the prison system got a lot of money. I know this, you know, and the governor of the state of Michigan right now, he belongs in prison, and he's getting the public to pay for his legal thing, you know, because he killed all these kids in Flint with the water crisis.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well,
I want to help.
Okay, Carol. Well, let's get some response here, Carol. Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say the one factor here, and I've been hearing it repeatedly, has to do with the misallocation or lack of allocation of money. With Medicaid being cut off by federal government under circumstances where perhaps it is most needed, especially when it comes to mental health, I think what we need to have is more localization and local control and state control of that money. There's much less inertia when we're dealing with things closer to where the problem is, that states know where their greatest needs are and counties know where their greatest needs are. And as soon as you start moving out further away to a distant capital and have them try to make a one-size-fits-all set of rules for 50 different states, I think that's where you start having money not going where it's needed. And in this case, we're talking about in prisons, in the jails, where people often end up who need some of the help. They're not getting it because it's being cut off, and the people on the ground, the people locally in the counties and in the states They know where these problems are, and they can learn from their past. Obviously, you mentioned Angler. You know, people make mistakes before, but at least the people in the state know when a mistake has been a mistake, and they can see the consequences more directly.
Okay. Dr. Comartin, you want to comment or any response?
No, I agree that when you localize money to, use the resources in the best case scenario or in the most judicious and effective way is key. You don't want what happens in Wayne County is not something that's going to be replicated in Marquette County, right? There are different needs at each location, and so you can't standardize what needs to be done. It all does need to be tailored.
And there's a great vast difference in probably opinion on what needs to be done as well. I'm presuming when you talk about Traverse versus Wayne County.
That's correct.
With it. Okay, next up we have John. John, you're on with Dr. Comartin, Scotty Boman, Commissioner Burton, and Bob Ficano. John?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Ficano. Yes.
Good morning. Our postal worker, John. John, how you doing?
Hey,
Good.
I'm good. What I call this, spare the rod, spoil the child. Does the doctor think that we need more drugs in the community to silence the people that have problems? Maybe they just need a paddle. Before we get into the big drugs, this is nothing but drugs for me. You know, the junkies, they take the drugs, but the people that push drugs, they don't take them. So this is where I'm at with this one, Mr. Ficano. I would like to ask that one. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Well, I think there's a distinction between prescription drugs for mental health issues versus you're talking about street drugs such as cocaine and marijuana, cocaine and heroin and things such as that. I think there's a real big distinction with that. Dr. Comartin, I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, there is definitely a issue with some people who have severe mental health issues have what is called a co-occurring disorder. So oftentimes, maybe due to stigma or they just are in denial, instead of going to get mental health treatment, they kind of self-prescribe. So they go to the streets to seek out drugs to kind of grapple with and deal with those symptoms that they're having from their mental health. So there could be both issues going on where someone has a serious mental health issue, but they also now have a drug issue because they're not treating the real symptoms. So we do see that a lot, especially in the criminal justice system. We have a very high proportion of those with mental illness have a co-occurring disorder. So there are specified treatments for people who have both. And they're evidence-based. They've been around for some time now. And when you can deliver that dual treatment at the same time where you're not treating the mental health issue by itself, you're not treating the drug issue by itself, but you're treating them together, it can be quite effective. We just got to make sure that people around the state are trained to deliver that type of treatment and are actually getting the resources to deliver it in their communities.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Comartin, I have a question. Oftentimes, we turn on the television and we hear crime being reported out. Is there any direct connection, where you can take mental health and you can tie it into poverty?
That's a good question. I am not well versed in that literature. What I can say is that there oftentimes, especially with people who have serious mental illness in the criminal justice system, that is another factor in their history, is that they've come from a poverty situation, so they not only come in contact into the jail with a mental health problem, oftentimes they have a co-occurring drug issue or alcohol issue, but then they also could be homeless, or they might not have stable, secure housing, and they might not have a long history of employment, right? So you're seeing all these issues of poverty that come along with the mental health issues, and we see that a lot with those who come to the attention of law enforcement and the jails who have mental health. They have not just one risk factor, right? They have all these other factors in their lives and their past that set them up to be an unsuccessful case unless we give them interventions to address all those risks. that's what we need to do in order to keep them out of the criminal justice system.
And what should the community do when they see someone that's seriously mentally ill, that just look like, they have no family member or kinfolks, that's actually looking out for their best interest? What should they do? Who should they reach out to?
In their local community, the first stopping point is the mental health authority. They're normally the ones who fund local service providers that can reach out to the individual should those services be available. I know in Wayne, in our surrounding counties here, Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb, I know that there are programs offered to people to, they're called normally access centers. So you can connect the person to the Mental Health Authority's access center. You can give them that referral number. Now, it's just on the person to make that decision if they want to call, right? You can't force somebody into treatment unless there's been some criminal situation, right? The person has to want it. So a lot of times, the authorities and the mental health treatment providers, there's these calls on them to say, you should be doing more, you should be doing more, but we have to remember that it's that person's choice if they want treatment. Treatment is never going to work for somebody who does not want it. So you need to build a community that doesn't stigmatize mental illness, that treats it as a valid mental health, a valid issue that needs treatment, not criminalization or punishment. And you got to make those people feel like getting that treatment is in their best interest, and it's something that will make their lives better. So we can't force it on people. We have to allow them to make the choice.
Yeah, I was going to add, as far as what the caller was bringing up about more drugs and all that, one of the biggest mental health issues, in my view, is the disease of addiction, where, and it doesn't have to be something that's illegal. It could be something legal like alcohol or gambling, but they end up having behaviors in order to feed the addiction that are illegal and that do victimize people. And a lot of times that's how people end up in the criminal justice system, is because of the side effects of their addictive behavior. And it just seems like that's one area where, in fact, there are a lot of services available in a voluntary manner, even to those with a lot of money, for instance, through 12-step programs and support groups and that kind of thing. And a lot of times, of course, people involved in crime aren't going there when they need to go there. But I think once they hit that brick wall, and one way to reach a bottom is to end up being in prison or in jail. I think having those services available there and having the people having time set aside where they can meet and go through that therapy would do a lot to prevent recidivism.
Sure. Well, we got a ton of callers here that are lining up here. Tracy, you're on up next with Bob Ficano, with Scotty Boman, and with Commissioner Willie Burton and Dr. Comartin. Tracy?
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call this morning. I am praying for us to be able to be more proactive with subjects like this as opposed to reactive. I keep hearing about treatment, but I was wondering if the doctor could talk about, based upon the empirical research that we already have about criminals in the criminal justice system, and I want to kind of highlight Nathaniel Abraham, and his mother indicated when he was young that she tried to get him help. What if we try to fund some programs in schools with more school psychologists, more social workers, more counselors, so that when they're adolescents, when they're in school and those red flags or those signs show themselves, we can start working with them then, as opposed to working with them on the back end once they get in the criminal justice system. I remember when I was at Michigan State, one of the classes I did take in criminal justice was that jails do not rehabilitate. So if they do not rehabilitate, why won't we focus our funds on prevention, just like we do with heart disease, as opposed to waiting to the back end? And thank you for taking my call. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Tracy. Dr. Comartin?
Thank you. Tracy, I could not agree with you more. I do, what we know about mental health is it starts showing its first signs in roughly, half of the population around the age of 14. So having prevention programs that start sooner than that is critical to, curbing the future, instability of somebody. So having programs in the schools that effectively and get to these mental health issues is key. The issue is that sometimes we don't want to fund prevention. Prevention's hard to prove, right? So if you're funding treatment, you can prove the outcomes because you already have people who are identified. But sometimes the funding doesn't flow when you're working on prevention issues. So I know that there are intermediate school districts in the state and the NDHHS, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. They are funding more preventative efforts. I am not aware of all of them and how they work, but I do know there is some programs and prevention programs going on to address this issue.
Fine. Jackie, you're on with Dr. Comartin and the rest of us here.
Good morning. I'm enjoying the program. I would like to ask this. Is there a way for mental health workers to be part of the police department, be police officers, so that they know how to handle a situation? 8 hours of training, I think that's a lot to put on police officers, to try to train them within 8 hours or 50 hours to handle the mentally ill. Also, when they're in prison, shouldn't there be a prison just for the mentally ill so that you would be able to work with the whole population at one time, rather than what I've seen on TV that I don't know whether that's true or not, but the way the mentally ill are treated in the prisons is terrible.
Well, there's a distinction. First of all, the distinction between when you get into the trial aspect of insanity versus, whether it actually impacts the intent of the person committing the crime and things like that. That's a whole separate issue that the psychiatrists and the psychologists deal with to see if there was a natural intent formed in the individual to commit the crime. I think what you're talking about is probably there's so many people that are in the criminal justice system in incarceration that have mental health issues, and is there resources being spent to actually deal with that, and not the criminally, when they say insane, that the action was taken to whether the intent of the crime was committed or not. You're talking about people have mental health issues, and it might have led partly to the environment.
When the call is given to the police department, they say, I think there's a mental problem here. Now, rather than to have a police officer come out that is really untrained in mental health, why wouldn't you have a mental health police, a trained mentally health person, police officer that comes out? And then they're taken to a place where only the mentally ill are, because we're also looking at the prisoners there, not only the correction officers, but what about the prisoners? They're also subjected to others with mental health issues. Shouldn't there be a place just for the mentally ill? Prison?
I can really answer your first question. I know they have a great program in Minneapolis where they actually send caseworkers out on those domestic violence calls, and also on those calls pertaining to mental health. And the program is actually working in Minneapolis. When I go to training every year for the National Association of Civilian Law Enforcement, that program that they have in Minneapolis is what all of the cities, a lot of the cities, I'm not gonna say majority, but a lot of cities are looking at, especially when we come down to training. And through DRACO, they, feel that they have a great model, but I was kind of surprised how long it was in a pilot program. The pilot program in Minneapolis was a little longer than expected, but they just launched. The program is working in Minneapolis. I would love to see something like that here. I would love to see something like that everywhere because
That's kind of logical. You know, what I don't understand really about the system, period, is that's a logical thing to do. But that isn't done. It's not logical to take a governor that closed all of the mental health places in at least Wayne County and make him the interim president of the university. These things are crazy. And we're not doing anything about it. And the people are not being represented. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes,
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
there's one other good program. I think Dr. Erin Comartin, you mentioned something about, in past weeks about Baltimore and how Baltimore had a really good program.
Right. So what Jackie's getting to is, Jackie, you're right, that should not be the officer that gets 8 hours of training that's actually doing the treatment. The goal of the training for officers is just to get them to identify when someone is having a mental health issue so that they can then do something about it. So none of the goals of these programs is to have an officer doing treatment. So the goal, what the other program you're talking about, nationally they're called co-responder programs. And so these are where social workers or mental health clinicians do ride-alongs or go out on patrol with an officer. And the officer is there to work through the legal issues and the law enforcement piece of it, but then the clinician is there to help either de-escalate a situation that has gone into crisis mode, or to also refer them to other services that could get them the treatment they need. And so what the commissioner is talking about in Minneapolis is a co-responder program where the social worker or clinician goes out with law enforcement when a call arises. What Baltimore has is it's a different way of thinking about it. It's more preventative. So the Baltimore Police Department finds areas of the city where they're getting the most calls that are designated from mental health and suicide. And then one day a week, a social worker or clinician and the officer goes out into that community and tries to do some prevention work. So before a crisis happens, they go out and ask people in the community, like, hey, do you need anything? Are you struggling with anything? Can we refer you to services that you may need, in order to take that flipped approach, a more preventative approach, instead of waiting for when a crisis happens.
We have a number of callers here. We can get to some of them. Colleen, you're on with Dr. Comartin.
Well, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. And I was just wanting to kind of add to what some of the previous callers said about Engler. What an egregious act he did, closing those mental health facilities. You know, showed no empathy to these people who were just literally put out on the street. And I know that because I have a sister that suffers from mental health and bipolar depression. And when my sister and I helped her with all of the paperwork, it is so convoluted. I mean, we're college graduates, and it was so difficult for us to go through all of the steps to get her, signed up for Medicare, Medicaid. There has to be a simpler system. And when people are suffering from mental illness, they don't have the ability to do all this work. She was fortunate that she had such a supportive family. Most people don't. And I will say Easterfield is a wonderful facility to reach out to for help.
Thank you. Thanks, Colleen.
And also,
go ahead.
Do any of you know, because I, with the candidates running for governor, I haven't heard anyone use mental health as their platform. I know Sheree Canadar is very, passionate about education, and I really like his platform on that because he gives bullet point by bullet point. I haven't heard anyone talk about mental illness. Have any of you?
No, I haven't actually. I've not heard it as, anything driving any of the discussion in the gubernatorial races. I doubt if you'll hear it on the Republican side. I'm not sure. The Democratic side, I've not heard anything. So.
Okay. Well, next time, yeah, go ahead.
I can say that I've heard it discussed actually by Lieutenant Governor Calley. So he, I know he's been part of the Governor's Diversion Council, and I know that he has talked about it. I've seen him speak about it in the work that he's done on the Mental Health Diversion Council. But other than that, I have not heard about it.
Yeah, I believe his son has autism, and so that's become a special issue that he's gone very deep into mental health matters.
Okay.
All right, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time. Have a great day, guys.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. We have to go to break. Dr. Comartin, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so you won't be able to hold on after with us. We appreciate it. John and Jerry, if you want to hold on, we'll be glad to take your calls right after the break. Dr. Comartin, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and good luck in your work and what you're trying to do with the law enforcement and with the criminal justice system.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, thank you.
I golf with women who are 82, 85 years old, and they can hit the ball, and I want to be that girl.
Priority Health wants to know, what's your reason for getting healthy?
I was creeping towards high blood pressure.
For my kids, just being able to show them a healthy lifestyle.
One goal is to be retired for as many years as I worked.
Whatever your reason for getting healthy is, our mission is to help you get there.
I want to stay healthy so that I can keep dancing.
Priority Health, a healthier approach to healthcare. Can health insurance be more human, more compassionate? Can it be healthier? It's up to us to show our corner of the world how. And it starts with putting people first, a task we take deeply to heart. That's why we don't see our members as numbers. They're our friends and neighbors. At Priority Health, we have 996,000 reasons to offer Michigan the best health insurance possible. And we care about every single one. Priority Health, a healthier approach to healthcare.
Every weeknight at 9 p.m. is something new and something fresh.
This is Todd Corser, and I want you to check out my show. Listen in and call every week as we explore government and hot topics. Tune in, raw and uncut.
This is attorney Michael Schwartz at 9:10 a.m. Superstation, and you can hear me every Tuesday night starting at 9 p.m.
Hello, Detroit. This is attorney Crystal Crittenden, and please tune in to my new show, The Truth Matters, on 9:10 a.m. Superstation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlene Mitchell, your host of Mind Your Business. Listen to my show live every Thursday from 9 to 11 p.m.
I'm Reverend Maya Lisa Reynolds, inviting you to listen to Mama Maya Speaks Friday evenings from 9 until 11 p.m., discussing education, motivation, and inspiration on Superstation 9:10 a.m.
Different names, different voices, but the same energy. 9:10 a.m. Superstation, the voice of Detroit. 9:10 a.m. Superstation is the only place to get the best in talk radio from sunup to sundown.
You have to get to the point that the most important voice that's in your head is your own. And if you can't stick on what the voice is inside your head, then you got to get the word down deep inside of you, so that's what you can turn to.
That's right. We wake you up with motivation at 5 a.m.
What I've learned, life has its punches, life has its ups and downs, but don't stop moving. You know why? Because you can't hit a moving target.
And keep you entertained and enlightened all the way to 3 a.m. Don't believe me? Just listen.
We are fortunate to have parents like Yolanda who never, ever stand down in the fight for having her children have a decent education.
9:10 a.m. Superstation. We are the future of radio.
9:10 a.m. Superstation is launching a new initiative called the 9:10 a.m. Ambassadors Program, where schools will be provided a platform to allow their inspiring broadcast and media students to weekly broadcast highlighting their schools.
All we will need is a 60-second video taken from a smartphone, tablet, or video camera, highlighting a story at your school.
Whether it's featuring one of your athletic teams, a student organization helping in a community, a student being chosen for a scholarship, or a teacher's unique approach to relating to students.
Whatever weekly story will best show how your school is unique and set apart, that's what we want to promote.
Your weekly video will be featured on all our social media platforms, from Facebook to Instagram.
To receive more information or speak with our ambassador representative, email us at 910amradio@gmail.com.
And don't forget to watch and listen for your story soon on 910 AM Superstation, the future of radio.
Every business is constantly looking for new customers and ways to increase their bottom line in order to stay successful and thrive. Without new customers, your business will only decline. Let the power of AM 910 Superstation showcase your store, your company, and your product. Now that's effective advertising. AM 910 Superstation. Call 586-790-3838. That's 586-790-3838.
We're the hottest station in town. Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation. The most powerful voices in the urban community.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans. When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer. I want to be a bike that races around the country. I want to be a bench on a forest trail. When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Is that a faucet running? That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink. What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum. That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest, cleaning up the air we breathe. I didn't know the trees were so amazing. Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb. That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
3, 2, 1. You are listening to 910 AM Superstation. The future of radio. You are listening to 910 AM Superstation.
The best in the city.
The future of radio. WFDF Farmington Hills, Detroit. 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online for like a year. She couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
And good morning. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation. This is Robert Ficano, and we have with us Police Commissioner Willie Burton, and with us Scotty Boman, not the former coach, but professor at Wayne County Community College. We're going to finish up on a couple of the calls that we had at the end of the hour, and then we're going to get to Deputy Chief Bettison in a minute. John, you're on with Bob Ficano and with Scotty Boman and the Police Commissioner.
Well, thank you, Ficano, and the gentleman commissioners officer. Thank you all for coming. Listen, Ficano, I have to tell you, be frank with you, I don't know how in the world we did it. Michigan got stuck with Engel, Rick Snyder, and Duggan. I'm so cold-blooded, hearted people, narrow-minded people in this state. I mean, Michigan is better than that. So now that's my gripe about them. Now,
John, you have a chance to change that. I mean, the gubernatorial election is going to be this year, and you have a real chance to change some of that.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, and which we should. But I have to tell you, there is three people that I wouldn't want to vote for Trump as him. And the way he treated that English treated that little girl, young lady up there, top of that, with his other baby, that's ridiculous. Now listen, gentlemen, I want to ask you, what in the world is that judge, that fool out the other day, out of jail, shooting at a 13-year-old child, running up and down the street, shooting a gun, when he put all them children out there on the street in danger, and the whole community in danger. That guy should be locked up in jail right now, because he's a danger to his family, to his children, and other children surrounding him and so forth. And he don't have no regard for human life. He out there running up and down the street shooting at a 13-year-old boy. And I have to tell you, I don't know what that judge really mouth for, but that guy should be locked up and kept in jail for it. He needs to go to some type of health disease and so forth. And that's what she should put him at. And I don't know who ordered him to let him out like that, because he's a danger to society. The minister never let about it. Now, I want to let y'all, what do y'all think about it? I am disappointed that she let him out, and definitely he's going to do the same thing. He's a danger to the community. Don't make no mistake about it.
Many Detroiters, want to know whether crime is up or crime is down.
I'm talking about that guy in Suburbs, the one that shooting at that 13-year-old boy. That fool out there and from the hill. That's what I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about Detroit. I know Detroit got this problem. But I'm talking about that fool out there that is out of jail. He shook his son, he's up in jail and so forth. Shooting at that 13-year-old boy, running up and down the street, shooting a gun. That's what I'm talking about.
I think you're talking about the one in Rochester Hills where the young man went up to ask for,
That's right.
They
knocked on the door or something.
He knocked on the door for directions, and then he was shot at, or the owner, or the.
Yeah. And apparently, it seems like the homeowner was not in like any imminent threat or danger. The person was fleeing.
The homeowner has been charged, and at this point, and at this, they're going to go through the criminal justice system, and there's been no sentence or anything handed out yet in that.
He should be thrown in jail. He's a danger to the community, and children out there. Why going up and down the street like shooting at a 13-year-old boy? So he asked for some information about how to get to school. Now I want that judge out there to throw his book at it, and the prosecutor.
Well, he
is charged.
He is charged, and they have a guidelines that they have to stay within. But we definitely going to hear more about it in the upcoming days and weeks.
Yeah, let's follow it and let's see what the judge does with it, John. We appreciate you calling in. Last call on this is Jerry. Jerry, you're on with Bob Ficano and with the commissioner.
Ficano, thank you for taking my call again. I appreciate your show. It's very important, very touchy, and I appreciate your guests and thanks for their service. Mr. Robert Ficano, it seems to me mental health issue is not just become a Michigan matter. It is a nationwide. And what I suggest over here, especially when we see crimes, in every 3 crimes, maybe one of them or 2 of them related to mental health issue. So the question I'm going to raise to the commissioner and to the professor, don't you think as a citizen, and we are as a citizen, if we could tell the Congress to pass a bill to call it mental health bill and to put a budget every year to solve this matter because it is very touchy and very dangerous and we should have a solution. So I just want the answer from Commissioner and the Professor, just like similar to Obama Healthcare, to have a bill. We call it mental health bill to be passed by the Congress. Thanks again, Mr. Robert Ficano, for your show, and God bless your guests.
I have I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'll bring back in there, that it is a national problem, but the problems occur locally. And what we have right now is a problem where the federal strings attached to, for instance, the Medicaid money has gotten in the way of mental health services often going where they're most needed. And rather than having Congress pass a bill where they take the money out of the states and try to micromanage them back to 50 different states with 50 different situations in all their localities based on a very broad set of rules, I think just the opposite is needed. And if I wanted Congress to do anything about it, what I would want Congress to do is to leave more money in the hands of the states and the communities and the people so that they could deal with the problems more responsibly. Because when you get a huge body like the federal government, there's a lot of inertia there. More mass, more inertia. And as soon as you bring things down to a smaller level, people can be more flexible. There's more adaptability. Legislators and the politicians are much more accessible as you localize matters rather than federalizing them.
To the gentleman that mentioned that it should be a mental health bill, I actually agree with you 100%. And I also want to just throw this out there, that we're going to have more community conversations on mental health. We're also going to have more conversations about gun violence and control, as well as poverty. So we're going to be talking about this at an upcoming town hall meeting, which is scheduled for Saturday. That's April 21st at 1 p.m. And it's at Elmwood Park Church of Christ. Elmwood Park Church of Christ, Detroit, Michigan. And that's at 2001 at Teenham. So that's Elmwood Park Church of Christ. So that's April 21st at 1 o'clock. We will be talking about mental health, poverty, and gun violence. And I agree, we do need a mental health bill.
Mr. Commissioner, sorry to interrupt you, sir. Commissioner, just a little story about a young man. He was 19 years old, and right now he is in a federal prison. All his problem was he downloaded some pornography picture from the computer. He did not abuse anybody physically or nothing, So that person, 19, he is staying behind bars with a drug dealer, with murderers, and he was having autism when he was young. Don't you think he's a victim, one of the victims of mental health issue? That person deserves to be treated, not to serve 10 years in a federal correction. I mean, this young man, his life is been destroyed. So that's the question I want to raise. That's very important issue, Mr. Commissioner.
Well, I'm not familiar with the case or anything of that nature. Who's the person you're referring to, or where did this happen?
Yeah, the person, Commissioner, he is a neighbor, a friend of a single mother, single parent. Her son was in the computer's room, download some pornography picture, and she is the one called the local police, tells them, my son, he did this. So she was asking for help. And what happened to him? He was taken to the court, and they sent him 10 years. At the beginning, they want to give him 10 years, but when he pleaded guilty, they reduced it to 10 years. And here's the poor guy. He's sentenced 2 years in a federal prison when he should be treated mentally, especially when he got autism when he was young from a single parent.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we have a case where there is an excessive application of criminal penalties for non-violent and often victimless crimes. And, as far as a lot of times, there's a lot of kind of internet censorship where a lot of people don't want people to have free access to information on the internet. And I think it is often the federal government wants to impair people's liberty to communicate and do commerce. I'm familiar with the case of a guy named Ross Ulbricht who created the free market website. And he's now serving a life sentence in prison just because he created a website where people could communicate freely and with total privacy. So I think there is a case here where you have a case where maybe the person was mentally ill.
Mr. Commissioner, sorry to interrupt you. The charge against him, it was, as the lawyers say, what it was exactly. They say he was accused of distribution of pornography material to his friends because, mentally he's not stable. And when he downloads the information, he gives some copies to his friends from school. And that's why they say they were severe against him because they accused him of distribution. And the poor guy, he was just a victim. He didn't know what he was doing.
Okay, but, it's a question for him. Yeah, it's something that the doctor would have to look at. Jerry, I appreciate you calling in. We have our 9 o'clock
Thank you
guest.
very much.
Appreciate it very, very much. Deputy Chief Bettison, welcome to 910 AM. I'm Robert Ficano, and you're very familiar with Police Commissioner Willie Burton and with Scotty Boman. Thanks for joining us here this morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you, Bob, and Commissioner Burton and Scotty Bowman? How are you guys?
How you doing, DC Bettison?
Can you explain a little bit of your job and some of the things you're doing in the Detroit Police Department, and obviously some of the questions that have come up perhaps about some of the shootings and unfortunate things that we've seen with some of the children in the community as well?
Absolutely. So I'm Chief Craig's liaison, neighborhood liaison. The neighborhood police officer program reports directly to me. I work directly for Chief Craig out of his office, and it's about community outreach, community engagement, because we know that without the community, we can't do our job, and that's one of the things by building community trust and working on that constantly. That's what's enabled us to be able to, improve our clearance rate to homicides, because when folks trust the police, it is for outreach, then you'll have folks more likely to speak up and just engage with us. So we're very, the work continues. We definitely don't wave the flag of white success. And it's an everyday challenge, but we're out here working with youth engagement. The Detroit PAL program falls up under my auspice as well. You see, a couple weeks ago, we had our grand opening right here at Trumbull, Michigan, with our new stadium, and we'll be able to touch for more kids like that as well.
Do you find that a lot of the issues start at a young age, and if you can intervene at a young age, that you can never predict what a person's going to do in terms of whether they want to follow a path of crime or not, but if you're engaged with a young person at a very young age, many times that can make a difference in their lives and what they're going to do.
Absolutely, Bob. You definitely, hit it on the head, because, by all your experience in law enforcement as well. And one of the things that we are doing, we're constantly working with our youth. We have a program that's been in existence for a long time, our Police Cadet program. And many folks aren't really, some folks aren't aware of it, but it's been around since the early 70s. And each year, during the summer months, through Detroit Go, Detroit Young Talent, and other sponsors, we have over 1,000 kids that work directly with our police officers when we employ them for the summer to give them activity. And then we also help bridge the gap, because many of those young folks you see with the yellow shirts on during the summer with officers, A lot of them are working with our seniors and senior homes as well, and helping our seniors out. So it bridges the gap between a generation and then also law enforcement. And many times that's their first opportunity at employment to start to instill some of those soft skills, some of the disciplinary skills, so that it will, stay with them, give them a sense of pride and responsibility. I want to touch on one thing also that's very important, Chief Craig. This program that we have right now is called City Camp, and that stands for Children in Trauma Intervention. Children in Trauma Intervention. And we're over at Henderson Middle School right now, and we have some of our neighborhood police officers working with the Detroit Violence Prevention Initiative, working with DPS, the principal there, and we teach supportive practices. And not only do we work with the children, we work with their parents as well, because, right now we have a community where folks, I'm talking about just in America, period, where folks are so quick to turn up from 0 to 100. We have to teach people and work with folks and say, hey, we have to turn from 0 to 100. What can I do as far as conflict resolution and teach folks those skills? And
Deputy Chief, I'll tell you what, we have to go to a break. I want you to finish up with us on that. You hold on over the break, obviously, and we have some callers. We want you to hold on as well. We're just going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with Deputy Chief Bettison.
910 AM Superstation is the voice of the people. Don't believe me? Just listen.
910 AM is constantly hot, from intense debate to the funniest commentary. 910 has it all.
We appreciate the love, and we can feel the support of the city. Keep it coming.
I love catching 910 AM news on social media. It's the way I love my news. Short, simple, and straight to the point.
So when you think of 910 AM Superstation, we want you to tune in, call in, and don't forget to find us on social media. 910 AM Superstation is the voice of the people. Don't believe me? Just listen.
I absolutely love this radio station. This station gets me through the work week.
And we don't just show love to the callers. We see the comments and the posts too.
I'm always on the go, so being able to watch all my favorite hosts on 910 AM mobile app is amazing.
So when you think of 910 AM Superstation, we want you to tune in, call in, and don't forget to find us on social media. If the conversation is hot and the lines are jammed, give us a try at 313-778-7600 or 313-778-7601. That's 313-778-7600 or 313-778-7601.
910 Superstation is off the chisel.
910 AM Superstation is the voice of Detroit, and we want to hear what you have to say by any means necessary. 910 AM Superstation is in a league of its own. We are the only talk radio station in the Metro Detroit area sensitive to the African American community.
Make sure you join us on what station?
910 AM Superstation.
910 AM.
910 AM.
On 910 AM Superstation.
910 AM Superstation, Metro Detroit's only African American based talk radio station.
And good morning. You're on listening to 910 AM. You can call us at 313-778-7600. I'm Robert Ficano. I'm on with also Scotty Boman and with Police Commissioner Willie Burton. And we have as our guest Deputy Chief Bettison. We have a few phone calls here, so let's line some of them up. Jackie, you're on with us here at 910 AM.
Thank you. I'm enjoying your program, and I'd like just to make another comment. The last gentleman that was on, I thought that that seemed to be a very, very good program. However,
yeah, he's still with us.
When we look at our prison system, aren't all of the people that are in prison, aren't they mentally ill? Shouldn't we be putting more emphasis on the mentally ill rather than, okay, when Jerry called in, he made a very, very good point. That young man, to get, I don't remember whether he said 2 or 10 years, was that the solution to the problem? No. Now the taxpayers are going to pay an exorbitant amount of money to keep this young man in jail when there was a mental illness problem. And I would say that most of the people that are in prison, there is a mental problem. And the problems in our society should be treated through mental illness rather than incarceration. Now, when you start thinking about the warning signs of fascism, there's an obsession with crime and punishment. It shouldn't be about punishment. It should be about trying to help that person become a good citizen.
Well, Jackie, you raise an interesting point. Obviously, in the state of Michigan, when somebody's incarcerated, they're sent to, quote, the Department of Corrections, and I don't think anybody thinks there's a lot of correcting that actually goes on towards the behavior or anything such as that. Mental health is getting more of an awareness in the criminal justice system. More people are now starting to look at that. I mean, it has gone over also into the gun debate and things like that, saying, you know, mental health it makes a big difference in terms of how people sometimes react with the criminal justice system. And
let me just say this. But people are deciding what is happening to our tax dollars. And I'm not in favor of putting that young man that Jerry was speaking about in prison for 2 years and pay for it, when that's not the solution to the problem. And what we had these leaders, in my opinion, that are all going in the wrong direction, and the people are not being represented.
Jackie, here's what happens, and having been through some of the experiences and things like that. You put together a program, prevention program, and dealing with mental health and things like that. No matter what you do, there's always going to be some people that look like they were a good candidate, they were out in the community and things like that, then they do something bad. And at that point, what does the media do? They're looking at everybody and saying, why did you let this person out? Why did you put this person in this program? And you can't be perfect 100% of the time, and people realize that, but the low percentage of time that something does happen, you see that the media jumps all over it. People that are in public positions that vote on these things, I mean, your representatives and stuff, they get suddenly...
You're absolutely right. But as citizens, we're not really concerned with that. What we're concerned with is the tax dollars that we spend are being spent in the right direction. And the direction that we're going in with this mass incarceration is the wrong way to go. We still have all of these problems, and we have all of these people in prison that more than any other country in the world. Just crazy.
I agree that we have way too many people in prisons and often dealing with problems by simply locking people up that can be dealt with in much better ways. I think, we brought up punishment and we brought up treatment. One thing that didn't really come up was the role of prisons in protecting people from other people. And to me, the primary role of a prison is to keep those who want to do me harm away from me and other people, that it's easier to keep them in one place than to have, protecting people 24/7 from other dangerous people wandering around. So there is a really important role of prisons in keeping dangerous people away from us. But when someone's downloading and sharing pictures, I'm not worried about you keeping that person away from me. I'm not afraid of them anymore. So it's kind of silly to put them in prison for 10 years.
I understand that, and I understand that there are some people that should be locked up and never let out in the community. The way that I feel, I think I could take 2 prisoners, and what are they getting, $30,000 or $60,000 a year? I could feed them right, treat them right, and direct them in the right way to go, and make them feel human, not dehumanizing people in a big, big institution, and then when they come out, they're worse than when they went in. And taxpayers are paying for that. And that's not the way to go and we continue to go that way. And there's nothing that the people can do.
Well, it depends. I mean, you can vote for representatives that are going to be more consistent with your views, Jack.
Well, let me say this. There was one gentleman that mentioned that I think Jerry said there should be a federal problem. And he said, well, he thought it would be better to be on a local or state level. But what happens is the federal government will send money here to do, let's say, tax foreclosures. But then when it gets to the local level, they change it around to demolition, and it doesn't help the people. So I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, there's accountability in electoral politics is. I mean, as a democracy, it's messy, it's hard, but it can be done.
The federal government sends money down to do what they think is correct, or many people think is correct, and then when it gets to the local level, they change it. They change the meaning of it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. John, you're on with Deputy Chief Bettison, as well as Bob Ficano, Police Commissioner Burton, and with Scotty Boman.
Wow. Hey, you guys. I appreciate all your service and your plight. You know, I just can't imagine the pressure. But here's some observations just from listening. And it's very interesting, the variety of what you get from the people, the emotion, down to everybody that's more attuned with what they want to say. But my thing is, the worst thing you guys hear is a domestic call, because you just don't know how the people will react. And then the second worst has got to be, the person who's like acting crazy, so you don't know. So you have to get there. And then I would say, for the purposes of what you said earlier, the police are recognizing, I don't want to just keep booking, these people need help, and maybe you neutralize the insurance and kick it back on. I would say the first thing that I would want to teach the police, and they're putting in all the extra hours and the money and they're losing their time, I would make the first thing on the approach a way of it, if you haven't already done it, pacification. Just pacify that person by saying, listen, you just tell me what's the problem, what do you want to do, where do you want to go, and tell them, no matter what, we're going to take you there right now. You know what I mean? If the person is all wired up because everybody called on this mentally ill, you can calm them down, tell them we'll give you that, we'll take you wherever you want to go, as long as you can get them neutralized. I'm sure it won't happen to all of them, but it will happen to, say,
well, John, there's a lot of extensive training on de-escalating. I know sometimes the media view is that, a police officer arrives right away with his hand or her hand on the gun. That's not how the training is.
You're right. You don't hear about the good stories. You only hear about the ones against the policeman, which is what I'm saying isn't right. If you guys weren't there, it would just, look at what's going on here, it would just be unbelievable. It'd be like one of those movies or something. But I'm saying, just any way you can, neutralize the person by getting them to where they want to go, and then just take them to one of those facilities that'll book them in and help.
Deputy Chief Bettison, I just wanted to jump in and say, first of all, thank you for your call. I thank Bob Ficano and also Burton and Commissioner Burton and Scotty Boman for giving me the opportunity to be on the show and take these calls. But yeah, Mr. Ficano is definitely right. We are trained, extensive training in de-escalation, and I'll just give you a few facts too, and Chief Craig is for these facts as well. We get about 500 calls to our 911 call center pertaining to mentally ill disturbances, things of that nature. And out of that 500 calls on a monthly basis, about 100 of them, the person has a weapon. So the mentally person with a gun call comes in. And for the most part, the Detroit Police Department, I would say, has done an excellent job in being able to de-escalate and be able to resolve those incidents without violence in the majority of the cases. But we have had cases where many officers have been killed and shot, injured, critically injured, in dealing with the mentally ill. What Chief Craig on the phone is this: we have to come up with a sustainability program for the mentally ill. It's not so much of how our officers approach and deal with those situations here in the city of Detroit. is more so about treatment, because if Benny Napoleon was on the phone, what he would say is, you got about 70% of the folks in Wayne County jails that are suffering from mental illness, you know, and when police get on the scene, the issue becomes, we don't have a lot of tools in our toolbox, especially except for jail. So we need the folks to fund the programs, and we all know, we've all heard about back in 93, you know, under, you know, where the funding was cut and the institutions were shut down in the city of Detroit and across southeastern Michigan to, you know, for long-term sustainability treatment of the mentally ill. That's the real issue here.
All right. Yeah, John.
John.
Okay, thank you, John.
I mean, it's such a hard thing to deal with.
Okay, thank you, John. We appreciate it. Deputy Chief Bettison, I know there's been a lot of issues. Things, you know, the way the media reactions sometimes happen to things, you could be doing a great job reducing crime, you know, making sure that you're on top of issues and things, and then emotional issues come up, like the 3 or 4 shootings, I believe, of young people or children that came up, you know, the past couple of weeks. And people will have, you know, a real visceral reaction to it. And that's got to be kind of tough to deal with because, you know, everybody's out there doing the best they can and trying to do things to make a difference. And yet just the emotion, because it involves children, and children's our most precious commodity that people are obviously worried about, can just turn things into a nightmare for the police department.
Bob, you're absolutely right. We feel it too. We definitely feel it. And you hit the nail on the head. Crime has, when it comes to homicides, that's one that gets the most attention. I'll give you a few numbers, then I'll speak directly to the question. Right now, we're sitting on an 18% reduction in homicides. Even though it doesn't feel like it, I can use the hard numbers as well. So year to date, 2018, we had 69 homicides. Last year, this time at the same time, in 2017, we had 84 homicides. And our clearance rate, this is a really important number, because you know that when Chief Craig got here in 2013, the Detroit Police Department clearance rate was far below the national average. It was below 20%. Right now, our clearance rate is at 57%. And to folks who understand what the clearance rate is, let me explain it like this. That means we're catching folks. But still, catching individuals after the crime happens, it doesn't really make the community feel a whole lot better, because the crime occurred. And I'm not saying, nor is anyone in the police department saying that, hey, let's celebrate because, we had 69 homicides this year. Last year we had 84. That's still way too many.
Sure, if you're one of the family members of one that's 69, it's, you know, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, and you know, with the 3-year-old that was shot last week, you know, we were able, within hours, to get the perpetrator in custody. With the 8-year-old, so we're closing the cases, and we're catching the folks. And you know, technology, we're going to get harder and hiring more police officers, and you know, with the community, you know, giving us tips as well with our level, with our Project Greenlight. You know, we're starting to, you know, trend downward in that right direction, but like I said, we have a long way to go.
Deputy Chief Bettison, you know, many Detroiters want to know, you know, is crime up or crime down? I know that these past 4 or 5 years, DPD has made some significant strides as far as fighting crime. But when you look at a 3-year-old girl who got struck with a bullet at a gas station, you know, if you know, you want to know, hey, is this something mentally ill going on? Where people out here carrying guns? What is DPD is doing as far as fighting crime in the local businesses and the communities? How can they plug into different meetings and conversations about a department? Can you please share that with us, please?
Yeah, we're doing a lot. And when I say a lot. We're attacking it from, sound policing, investigatory type work, community engagement, and technology. And when I say technology, we have that signature program, Project Greenlight, where we partner with private businesses and allow them, if they want to become a part of it, and being a good stakeholder in the community and put the people first to be able to connect their cameras into the Detroit Police Department's real-time crime center. And we have analysts and officers working at that real-time crime center that monitors those cameras, that not only are we talking about just regular cameras, these cameras allow us to get it in HD. Because we remember a couple of years ago, before Project Greenlight, where when the news media would show video footage from a gas station or another type business, you would look at the figure that the suspect, but you couldn't even recognize it was your own brother. It was grainy. The cameras, but under Project Greenlight, we standardized the qualifications for the cameras. We also made the businesses increase their lighting so that it's appropriate lighting. And what we've seen is, if something does happen, we have videos, so it's very easy for us to identify the individuals who committed that crime, but more importantly, it serves as a deterrent. We want criminals in this town to make a different business decision and just don't do it. Don't do it. And we started out with 8 green-light locations. Now we have over 300. We believe by the end of the year we'll have over 400. And we're doing it in a way where we're working with the business community, working with nonprofits, and everybody wants Project Greenlight. Then from an investigatory standpoint, you say, well, I just spoke to the fact in the category of homicide, how back in 2013, you remember, our clearance rate for homicide stayed nationally because it was so low. When you have a low clearance rate, that means you're not catching people.
Now, the community's saying that, when you go to the gas stations, you gas up, and you go to the party stores, and you make your purchase, they actually like what the city of Detroit is doing with Greenlight. So you start to get a lot of positive, conversations flowing around the whole energy around Greenlight. So apparently something is definitely working near. But I'd love for you to share with the listening audience, how many crimes is DPD is solving at Greenlight locations? What's the reduction rate? I know that you guys are really solving a lot of crimes at Greenlight locations and things of that nature. It is a deterrent, but it's good for the listeners to know, like, what is how many cases are you solving from Greenlight locations?
So let me put it in perspective. So at our Greenlight locations, initially we started off with just gas stations. Mm-hmm. But by just individuals, businesses, the community demanded that we expanded. So now we have car washes at a Greenlight location. We have gas stations. We have grocery stores. We have senior apartment buildings. We brought in one of the senior apartment buildings to Mr. Burton. Thank you so much. So now it's so expensive. But what I would tell you is that at many of our in some of the locations that were suffering from a systemic historic crime problem, we lowered their crime at those locations by over 50%. So all of them are not the same because all businesses didn't have the same crime problem when they joined Project Greenlight. But you look at the gas station at one of the first ones at Hoover and 7 Mile across from Osborne High School. I talked to that business owner. He was like, it really has been beneficial. And I know that we cut their crime over 50%. You said that the open-air drug dealing that was occurring out in the parking lot, that went away. And a lot of listeners would be surprised to know that the liquor store at Mac and Beasley, the iconic liquor store there, that is a Greenlight location now.
And Mac and Bewick was one of those worst areas for many, many years.
It was. We have some callers on here. before the end of the hour if we can get to them. Nathan, you're on with Deputy Chief Bettison with the police.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I guess they're supposed to make me feel better when somebody robbed me and they caught on camera. I know it used to be a thing about crime prevention, not crime solving. What happened to crime prevention?
So Nathan, I will say that that's the reason we put that flashing green light up there. That is the reason we put, the signage there to let folks know. We're not trying to just say we got you. We're not doing this in a covert way. We're putting it up to make folks make a different decision and say, hey, you know what? I should commit this crime here. We want to prevent crime from happening in the first place. And it's working. Because we need the young men who are in the light and what I'm told. We say, you know what, that green light, they're trying to lock us up. We can't, we ain't even got nowhere to go anymore. So,
everybody got cameras now on their phones, and you got criminals out there now that don't care nothing about a camera.
DC Bettison, I recall the department you all just recently done not long ago, where you just opened up the Real-Time Crime Center, had a ribbon ceremony. Can you explain to the callers about that whole build-out with the Real-Time Crime Center and what is it doing?
The Real-Time Crime Center is a 24 operation. We have camera feeds, and we're able to, of course, I've talked a lot about green light, but we also have cameras that I haven't talked a whole lot about that we're strategically put in different places around the city. It's, parks, places where, we'll have illegal dumping and things of that nature, and we'll move them around, and we've been able to apprehend individuals in the commission of crime there as well. Also, our Real-Time Crime Center analysts are very, very smart, and it's a homeland security component as well. Because we talk about crime, we also have to protect the homeland from acts of terrorism. We have to still remember that big cities such as Detroit, with all of our infrastructure here, and at any point in time, we could be a charge-rich environment that people want to do mass destruction and harm to our city. So as a result, our Real-Time Crime Center, with the analysts there, are out there always, surfing and monitoring the chatter of the social media platform and other platforms to make sure that we're protecting our homeland, our city of Detroit as well.
Deputy Chief, one of the things that's hard to quantify is someone who doesn't commit a crime because they've been, scared, lack of a better word, scared off, or they realize that the odds were not in their favor in committing the crime at a particular location. In the law enforcement community, I know that it goes back to that whole theory of broken windows. If they see that a community doesn't care, it might be an area more that they might be willing to commit a crime and take the chance, versus if they're in a community that looks like they actually care, and the prevention, the green light programs, and some of those are all programs that say, we do care, so if you're thinking of committing a crime here, there's going to be a reaction to it and try to discourage them from it. It's a whole different mindset, knowing that a community cares, versus one if they walk by and they see that it's, as in the broken window theory, that the window's broken and it stays broken for 3 weeks, but the community doesn't care.
I'm so glad you brought that point up, because our community does care with the number of citizens' involvement with our radio patrols, and I have to give our radio patrols in the city of Detroit a shout out. I have to give my block club captains a shout out, because they do care. And to show you how much they care, a public display of that is, Angels Night. When we're going to have Angels Night, we're going to have the largest community organizers or community engagement of volunteers in the country. It actually made, believe it or not, with the number of folks that we had and continue to have that come out to do the good work to keep our city safe. So our community part has just been awesome.
Deputy Chief Bettison, many believe, many Detroiters are saying, what about our neighborhood? We talk about downtown, we talk about midtown, but what about our neighborhood? And I noticed that that we have the neighborhood police officers. We just opened up 3 or 4 police precincts within the neighborhoods. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's very important for the listening audience to know about what resources that DPD has opened up and made available for the neighborhoods, because you often hear that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Under Chief Prince's platform, ever since he got here, all he's been about is neighborhoods. When he got here in 2013, remember, we didn't have precinct stations. They were closed. They were the district concepts. Remember, the precinct stations were closed at 4 p.m. He immediately opened them back up. And he said, we need a police precinct in every neighborhood. So now I'm having to report that our 12 precincts, they all have buildings. I mean, so we opened the 8th precinct. We opened the 7th precinct back up in the neighborhoods. We built new stations. So that's what it's about. In our neighborhood police officer program, right now we have 59 neighborhood police officers. And what they do is they deal with the quality of life type issues. So we all know about the high profile type stuff and the violent crime, but for everyday Detroiters, most Detroiters don't experience that. What they do experience is property crime. They're experiencing quality of life type issues. And that's what our neighborhood police officers deal with. We get a lot of calls about noise complaints, light, and how do I do this, and how do I start a block club. So that's what our neighborhood police officers are out there doing, working with the community, working with our youth in schools, because like you said, our youth is what they are right now.
Okay, I wanted to, by the way, as a part of a patrol, one of the neighborhood patrol, radio patrols, I'd like to say you're welcome, because you were earlier thanking us for that. And I'd like to thank you for your involvement with the police community relations boards, and especially like over in the 5th precinct. I know, like over at the Samaritan Center, I've seen you, and there is a beautiful building over there in the 5th precinct, and it's a very nice facility there. But one thing that came to mind in the neighborhoods, it came up, and also with the green light. In the neighborhoods, when I'm on patrol, I've noticed a lot of illegal dumping, and occasionally I have made some calls about that. And it's occurred to me that if we could have cameras set up at some of these places where people are repeatedly dumping, and this goes kind of to the broken window approach. I mean, one thing people drive through and they see an area they don't think where people care is when they start seeing garbage piling up in the vacant lots all over. I think that might be also a good deterrent to crime, that people go into a neighborhood and they don't see all that garbage piled up like that. If we could catch people illegally dumping, with those cameras, I think that would be a big asset.
Yes, Scotty, I'm so glad you brought that up. Absolutely. We are doing just what you said. When I talk about the cameras that we don't talk about, we move those around to locations where we get repeated complaints of illegal dumping. We work very closely with DPW to identify those locations, and we have caught folks in the process, and we've been able to go out to their houses in the suburbs. For many of them from suburban community, we'll go out there, we'll impound their truck, and we will do the legal process, because we definitely prosecute them. So we'll be continuing that program as well.
Deputy Chief, I do have to raise this question. Is there one area in particular you feel that needs, you feel that the department is growing in many ways, as far as fighting crime and solving a lot of issues on the ground? I know that you all are bringing on 30 new officers per month, but is this one area you feel that needs a little more improvement than others, and what would it be?
It's going to take all of us. I mean, I can look at and kind of give you some statistics, and but if you think of a crime, statistic really doesn't mean a lot. But I remember a point in time this town.
I mean, do you feel that one area, give an example, one area of improvement? I would say you guys need more funding.
The mental illness right now. I mean, that is the area right now where we, as a police department, because many of our victims many of our officers have been injured as well, and those calls and just the community in general, we do not want to criminalize mentally, folks suffering from mental illness. We want to get them the treatment that they need, and that's what the chief is pushing for. And so it's bigger than the police department, but we're willing to roll up our sleeves and be a voice and advocate for more funding, because A lot of our resources are being tied up, like I say, 500 calls per month with mentally challenged individuals. And that takes a lot of resources, but at the same time, if you don't have anywhere to take them, and we already know that with the 72-hour rule, a lot of times when you're taken to the crisis centers, what happens? They're right back out. Sometimes within 12 hours. It is not fair to them. It is not fair to the community. It is not fair to the officers of the Detroit Police Department.
What would you like to say to the community that knows someone that's seriously mentally ill, that come in contact with them mentally ill? What would you like to say to them who should they contact? Who should they notify?
We have about a minute to go here. Go ahead, Deputy Chief.
I would say they should go to if they live in Wayne County, definitely go to the Wayne County Mental Health I know
Authority. Yeah, they have some outreach locations that you can come in contact with.
And before you go, I know the Detroit Police Department launched the app. I know this app is very user friendly. Can you share the name of the app so the listeners can know?
DPD Connect, it's called DPD Connect, just like it sounds, and it's on iTunes and Google Play, so they can definitely download the app. And I also encourage everyone to download the Improve Detroit app, and that's an app that came out of City Hall. Mayor Duggan created, but definitely download Improve Detroit also, secret things. If they complaints there, report blight, and city will get out and address those abandoned vehicles as well.
Detroit Police Department came a long way these past 5-6 years. Great leadership over there. Want to thank Deputy Chief Bettison for joining the call, enlightening us about the new task force and prevention.
Willie, we appreciate it. And Deputy Chief Bettison, unfortunately, we're coming near the end of our hour here. I want to thank you for coming in today, or I should say being on the phone today and enlightening the citizens about a lot of the hard work that DPD is doing. I appreciate it very, very much, and much success in the future to you.
Hey, thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank Scotty Boman. I want to thank our police commissioner, Willie Burton, who has his town hall meeting going to be April 21st, 1 p.m. at the Elmwood Park Church of Christ. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Refreshments are even going to be provided. So appreciate everybody listening today, and we will see you again next week. Thank you.
Every weeknight at 9 p.m. is something new and something fresh.
This is Todd Corser, and I want you to check out my show. Listen in and call every week as we explore government and hot topics. Tune in, raw and uncut.
This is Attorney Michael Schwartz at 9:10 a.m. Super